Welcome to Naveem Connect, the space where spirituality meets the messy but beautiful reality of being human. I'm Jean, and with me as always is my fantastic co-host Humphrey.
Thanks, Jean. Today, we're digging into a concept that's foundational to both our inner spiritual world and our external human experience: the power of knowing yourself. We're adding something new to the show. In addition to our usual episodes with incredible guests, we're introducing new, shorter segments we're calling The Science of Spirituality. In these, we'll take a practical, everyday question and back it up with a bit of data and science, helping to bring these big ideas down to earth.
I love that we're doing this because this topic is a perfect example of what we're trying to do. The idea of knowing thyself goes all the way back to the ancient Greeks, but it's only in the last few decades that science has started to validate it. It's not just a nice thought, it's a biological and psychological imperative. So let's start with a little vocabulary because the terms can be confusing. How would you define self-knowledge versus self-awareness?
That's a great distinction. Think of self knowledge as the content of who you are. It's the stuff you can list on a sheet of paper: your beliefs, your values, your fears, your likes, your dislikes. It's the information you have to answer the question: what am I like? Self awareness, on the other hand, is the process, is the active ability to recognize and understand all that content: your character, your behaviors, your attitude, and the impact they have on the world.
And that process has two distinct parts, right?
It does. There's internal self awareness, which is how well you know yourself through introspection. It's the practice of looking inward at your values, your passions, thoughts, and feelings. And then there's the external self awareness: how well you understand how you're perceived by the outside world. You develop that by actively seeking feedback from others, which helps you see your blind spots and close the gap between who you think you are and who you really are.
Okay, so this is fascinating because this isn't some ethereal, disembodied practice. The research shows it's literally rooted in our brain architecture. When we're just sitting and reflecting, a specific neural network called the default mode network, or DMN, becomes active. It's a collection of brain regions, including the medial prefrontal cortex, a region within the frontal lobe of the brain, crucial for various cognitive functions like decision making, emotional regulation, and social cognition. It's like our brains are physically wired for introspection.
Which makes sense because this practice is so foundational. It affects nearly every aspect of our lives. Let's talk about the big benefits. The first one, and probably the most important for our mental health, is emotional regulation.
Yeah, and the research is very clear on this. Strong internal self awareness is linked to greater happiness and a deep sense of fulfillment. And it's not just a feeling, it's quantifiable. A study on guided self awareness coaching showed that participants experienced a 20% or greater increase in their emotional regulation scores. That's a massive improvement. They were better at managing emotions in challenging situations, responding thoughtfully instead of impulsively.
That's the difference between reacting and responding. And that leads directly to the next benefit: better decision making. When you know your values and your biases, you can make choices that are deeply aligned with who you are and what you want in life. That same coaching study found a 20% or greater improvement in both decision making and goal alignment. It gives you a clear sense of direction and purpose, which is something so many of us are searching for.
I think what I also found interesting that it also transforms our relationships. We often think of empathy as this magical ability to feel what somebody else is feeling, but the research points to a more fundamental step. A study found that a positive and accurate self-concept contributes 12.7% to the effectiveness of interpersonal communication. In other words, the clearer you are about yourself, the better you are at communicating with others.
And there's a really surprising nuance here. A study found that a person's ability to recognize and understand their own emotions, which is a form of self knowledge, is more strongly related to social cognitive skills than their self reported empathy. So the path to truly understand others starts with a deep, honest look at your own inner emotional world. You can't truly empathize with someone else's pain if you're out of touch with your own.
I completely agree with that. And of course, we have to talk about career success. So I was surprised by this. We often assume that an MBA or years of experience are the most important predictors, but the research says otherwise.
It's stunning. A study of 72 executives found that a high self awareness score was the single strongest predictor of overall success. Think about that. It was more important than anything else. Self aware leaders perform better, they're more likely to be promoted, and their teams are more self confident and adaptive.
Man, and here's the kicker, the stat that gives me chills every time I see it. Despite this incredible importance, research estimates that only 10 to 15% of our population is actually self aware. This widespread lack of self awareness leads to a humbling truth. There's less than 30% correlation between people's self perceived competence and their actual competence. We are, as a species, pretty good at deceiving ourselves. What happens when we lack self knowledge, or worse, embrace self deception?
Well, the consequences can be severe. Self deception is when you hold a persistent, positive belief about yourself despite evidence to the contrary. While it might feel good in the short term, it has brutal long term effects. For example, it can lead to impaired health because you might deny being sick and not seek the help. It also hinders your long term development because if you believe you're already perfect, why would you bother to learn or grow?
And I think the most alarming one you found was that how it can promote like unethical behavior.
Absolutely. Self deception can regulate the internal conflict between your ethics and your self interest, allowing you to believe that an immoral action is actually immoral. One paper gave the chilling example of men deceiving themselves into believing violence against their partners is moral. This isn't just about ego, it's a dangerous mechanism that can have real world consequences, even leading to organizational bankruptcy or government corruption. So, with all that, what's the takeaway here for us, for our listeners? What's a spiritual, human, and practical way to start this journey of getting to know ourselves?
The research suggests a simple shift. Stop asking why and start asking what. Instead of why am I so anxious, which can lead to judgment, ask what am I feeling right now? What are the thoughts and actions that are connected to this feeling? What can I do differently?
It's about being a compassionate observer of your own life, not a harsh critic. We can also start small with simple daily practices like journaling, and just as importantly, being brave enough to ask for feedback from people we trust. It's a journey, not a destination, and it can take humility, strength, and a willingness to see yourself clearly.
I think it's a lifelong process of uncovering the truth of who we are, not just for ourselves, but so that we can connect more authentically with others and contribute to the world in a way that's true to our spirit.
Couldn't have said it better myself. That's all the time we have for today. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, stay connected, stay kind.